Tonight on this brief devotional thought, I want to talk to you about a legend that has arisen in history about the Apostle John. And the way the legend goes, and there's no way to prove necessarily whether it's true or not, we'll hopefully one day have a chance to ask him whether or not this was the case. But the way the legend goes is that John, the apostle, and the self-proclaimed, by inspiration, best friend of Jesus, the one that Jesus really loved, that he lived out his final days in the church at Ephesus. And presumably, the way this theory would go is that he authored the Gospel of John in the 90s, authored his letters, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, and also there was a period where, because of persecution, he was sent to the island of Patmos and received there the revelation. And somewhere in the midst of all of that, he was there at Ephesus. And being older and aged by this point, it was a Sunday, and they wanted the Venerable John to give the meditation from Scripture that particular Lord's Day. And they had to help him up to the pulpit and before the people. And here was John's last sermon. By the way, you can still see remnants of something of the building of the church at Ephesus still standing today. And so it's quite possible in the place that we see, still there, that John possibly stood here. And in that moment, delivering his last sermon, here was the extent of the sermon. Little children, love one another. And with that, he was helped back down. And after the service was over, some people asked him, "Why was your sermon so brief, and why were your thoughts so short?" And John's answer was, "Because the Lord commanded it, and it is enough." I don't know whether that story is true or not, but I do think it's a really powerful story. And there's an irony inherent in the story, because if the story is true, and John spent his last days there in Ephesus at the church, and that was his final sermon, "Little children, love one another," it's ironic in some sense, because the irony is that Ephesus at some point lost her first love and was condemned in Revelation for having lost a first love. And I'm reminded of John's writing in 1 John. He says, "Whoever says, 'I know him,' but does not keep his commandments is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoever keeps his word, in him truly the love of God is perfected. And by this we may know that we are in him. Whoever says he abides in him ought to walk in the same way in which he walked. And beloved, I'm not writing you a new commandment, but an old commandment that you had from the beginning. And the old commandment is the word that you have heard." And so the reminder for us is to love not the world, as John's later going to write in 2:16, love not the world or the things in the world, but love Jesus first, and love your brothers and sisters, and to love one another. Little children, love one another. The Lord commanded it, and it is enough. We gather here in Jesus' name. His love is burning in our hearts like living flame.